The 80s, the greatest decade of action movies, very odd looking gym outfits, and crack. Lots and lots of crack. Truly, the greatest decade of all time. So it only makes sense to throw the greatest DC movie character that the DCEU ever tried to make into that period as well. You would think. Wonder Woman 1984 came out today on Christmas. You're probably not going to see this till after Christmas, depending on how fast I decide to edit tomorrow morning. But this is a sequel to the first Wonder Woman movie that came out a few years ago, which also takes place before all the, Justice League, Dawn of Justice silliness. And we meet back up with Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman, this time years and years later after the events of World War I, where she lost her love, Steve Trevor. And we see now that she's more or less where she was when we met her in, Dawn of Justice and Justice League. She's a curator at a museum, this time in DC and all that stuff. But at the same time, she's also doing her Wonder Woman thing, but she's kind of keeping it secret. I mean, not that big of a secret. I mean, she knocks out cameras and stuff, so I guess they can't have any, video evidence of her. But tons of people are constantly seeing her, so her legend is out there. But she's still kind of slightly down in the dumps because, after all these years, she still hasn't got over her, dead boyfriend of one good week. I mean, he did look like Chris Pine, so I guess that would be anybody's major loss. But everything starts to change with this discovery of this seemingly magical wishing crystal thing that grants anybody one wish, anything that they want, which leads to Diana inadvertently wishing for Steve Trevor to come back into the mortal coil. But it also brings some kind of calamity to the world as well when Pedro Pascal, who plays this big oil tycoon guy, gets his hands on this thing, uses it to gain power, and in doing so, bringing a lot of chaos to the world. So now it's time for Wonder Woman to try to figure this all out before the 80s is destroyed forever. And that's the plot of the movie, and I have to say, I still like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I think she does a good job. She has the look. I like how the costume look is bright and colorful. It kind of meshes with that time period really well. And I still like her dynamic with Chris Pine as Steve Trevor. I really enjoy their relationship. But that being said, that is the best thing I can say about this movie. Granted, this isn't a bad movie, but the problem is when comparing it to the first one is obviously the superior thing. I'm not really trying to go into spoilers here. I might just do a straight up spoiler section here. So if you want to hear straight up spoilers, here's a little timestamp. That's where I'm just going to kind of really go into everything I really didn't enjoy about this movie. And this isn't a new thing for movies where the sequels are usually not as good as the original. But the problems that this movie have are very obvious, and it's problems that I had hoped most movies have already gotten past. Certain tropes and things that were always there that really bogged the movie down, that it seemed that a lot of movies, especially in the superhero genre, were finally starting to get over. This movie kind of brought back a bit. One of those things being the MacGuffin. Now, if you don't know what a MacGuffin is, essentially it's just a plot device that's there to make things happen so that you have a movie. And you still see MacGuffins around. I mean, most of the Marvel movies in the first couple phases all revolved around MacGuffins, essentially. But the MacGuffins really felt like they had purpose. They really kind of fed into the story a lot better. And really, even though they were kind of the central point of the story, there's a lot more things going on around the characters you're following that kept you interested enough that even with the MacGuffin there, it didn't distract, it didn't bog down the movie. And that's the problem here. With this whole wishing stone thing, that's the MacGuffin of this movie. It's all about that, but as far as things that Diana has to go up against, it's not really serving as much of a, good plot thread to drive it home. So you have to really rely on her relationship with Steve Trevor, which again, I like their dynamic as far as acting, But Steve Trevor really doesn't have a point in this movie. Like, Steve Trevor was in the first movie, and his whole point there, other than being Diana's romantic interest, was that he was her connection to humanity, to man. He was Diana's first exposure to man. He kind of brought her into this world and showed her how things work. He gave her hope that maybe man could kind of turn away from more of its more evil things. But in this movie, he kind of just here to serve as a means of causing Diana some drama, essentially. Just some, like, you know, just stir up romantic stuff. That's about it. That's all he really serves. He doesn't really do much for the movie. I will say the movie opens with a pretty strong opening. You had this whole sequence with young Diana going through this obstacle course, essentially Kids Ninja Warrior. It was a pretty cool sequence. And then you have this whole mall sequence where she's taking down these robbers, which I thought was pretty cool too. But after that, everything kind of comes to almost a screeching halt. And things are happening. You're getting introduced to characters, and you're getting introduced to MacGuffin and, you know, I guess the overall conflict of the story. But those things, how they're presented, they're really not that interesting. Especially the villains. Our main villains here are Pedro Pascal and then Cheetah. I can't remember the actress' name. I know, and she's a famous actress. She does comedy and stuff. I know she's funny sometimes, at least. But you have her and Pedro Pascal. And Pedro Pascal, like I said, he's after the wish granting device. She is kind of this clumsy lady. He's not that popular. So she gets her hands on the wishing thing and inadvertently makes herself popular and powerful. And, you know, that's how she eventually is becoming Cheetah and stuff. Neither one of their arcs in this movie really amount to anything, especially Cheetah's. I mean, Pedro Pascal's character, he has an arc, but it kind of just happens. But with Cheetah's character, she just kind of starts off as this kind of kind, but, you know, kind of self-conscious woman who, you know, really wants to have more respect, wants to be more, you know, have people have eyes on her and be popular and stuff. But then in the snap of the finger, she's just kind of like all the way evil. And there is a kind of build up to it, but nothing I feel made sense. And they kind of give a reason why she's suddenly like this. But again, it doesn't make for a compelling villain. And she's kind of there to serve as the foil to Wonder Woman, I guess, so that we can have action. Because again, the main antagonist of this is a MacGuffin, so you need her there to do that. But again, there's really no arc to her. She just kind of comes up and then she's done. Going back to the thing, it's just a lot of, you know, it's just a lot of downtime in a superhero movie. And I get you don't want to have constant action in the movie. You want some story and character moments. But the story and character moments, they're really boring. And most of them, they amount to a lot of ooh and ah moments. Like, there's literally maybe 2 or 3 scenes where everything just stops. Like, they're in a hurry to get someplace, and they just stop to just gaze at the wonders of the world or something. Like, you're trying to stop the apocalypse and all this stuff, but hey, we have some time to just fly over the clouds and just go like, hey, is that amazing or what? Again, I feel like I have to spoil this movie to talk about really my problems. So I'm just gonna wrap this up and say, the movie is not horrible, it's not bad. It's probably, I enjoyed it way more that I got to just watch on HBO Max and paying like $20 to go to a theater. But as a sequel to the original, which I really felt was a genuinely good movie, it's to this day DC's best movie. I feel like it was a letdown. I felt like it could have been better. But that's it, guys. Now I'm getting to spoilers because I have a lot to say. First off, again, yeah, the whole movie's about a MacGuffin. This wish-granting stone thing that you just touch it and it grants any wish you want. So of course when Wonder Woman gets her hand on this thing, because she has the, you know, no boyfriend blues, even though she could get any man, but none that she really loves. Because yes, in the past, 50 or whatever years since Steve Trevor died, she just never found any other men interesting. When she gets her hands on it, she wishes for him back, but he doesn't just like resurrect. It's not him. His soul possesses the body of just this random guy. And right there is where it becomes very morbid, because as soon as she realizes it's Steve in this body, she takes no consideration that this is a whole other person that he has just hijacked. She kisses him, which, okay, that's fine, whatever. But then they sleep together. Like, they straight up just bang. Like, you don't see it, but it skips the next day, they have done it. And they never acknowledge, hey, you know, I just kind of took over this whole man's life, and we kind of just used his body. That's kind of messed up, right? But no, we don't think about it because they switched from it looking like him to look like Steve Trevor, even though in reality he looks like a completely different person. But to the audience, and they have a throwaway line with Diana where she said, "All I see is you," which no, you don't. You see the other guy. But yeah, all you see is Chris Pine. But the whole context is this is a whole other person's body that he's possessing. I don't know. I couldn't get that out of my mind how messed up that was. But that kind of even goes into like the whole power of this wish stone thing. Like, they kind of set rules for it. You know, it's kind of like a monkey's paw, which you wish for one thing, it grants it, but it also takes something away from you, which kind of ruins your life. But part of that rule is you only get one wish. You don't have multiple wishes. It's not even like the monkey's paw, really, where you get like 3. You get one wish. But there's points where they kind of cut fast and loose with it, where Pedro Pascal, because at a certain point, his wish is that pretty much he becomes the stone himself. So anybody he touches, he grants their wishes, but in return he takes something from them. There's points in which people who have already had wishes, like Cheetah, he just grants them another wish, even though they've used their one wish. They even established this at one point where he tried to use somebody to, grant one of his requests, his wishes essentially. It doesn't work because he's already used them. But when he does it for Cheetah, it just works. They never explain why. He even offers to do it for Diana, for a second time too. So the rules of this MacGuffin makes no sense. And again, we just kind of assume that this is just how Pedro Pascal's powers work now. Like, establish that the monkey paw, it gives you something, but it also takes away something precious to you. But with Pedro Pascal, like, he just kind of gets to pick and choose now with people. I don't know. They just didn't do a good job of establishing why he's able to do certain things. And then also at the end of the movie, his big plot is to, get all the wishes of the world all at once to make himself more powerful and sustain his life, because the power is also killing him. But they establish he has to have physical contact with you when you make your wish, but they somehow get around it by saying, oh, well, light particles or something traveling to different satellites and hidden TVs somehow connects him with the people on the other side of the TV, somehow making that able that he can grant their wishes without actually touching. It makes no sense. And again, yeah, like Cheetah, at first, she just has Diana's powers essentially because he wished to be like her. But then at a certain point, she's like, yeah, I want to be apex predator. Getting like a second wish, I guess. And suddenly, like, bam, yeah, now she's just Cheetah, which this also is another just trope that movies used to do where they just, hey, that's a recognizable thing from the comics. Let's kind of just throw it in at the end and it'll just be there for like, I don't know, like 5 minutes. Like literally, she's Cheetah for about maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And then suddenly, she's not Cheetah anymore. And you never go back to her at the end. Like, you see Pedro Pascal, he gives up his powers and all that stuff, because the power of love, because apparently the lasso of truth can now show you truth and connect you across. I don't know. But yeah, he gives up his power, and I guess that somehow makes Cheetah go back to normal too, even though you never see her say, hey, I give up my wish. And you see she's normal now, but you never go back to her. You never see any repercussions. There's no repercussions for any of the villains here. They lose their power and then they just, I guess, go back to normal life. Which also, the movie ends weirdly because the world was on the brink of destruction. Nuclear Armageddon. People in the streets, panicking.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
And then suddenly that all ends and it's Christmas and people are just chilling outside. Like not like a few months ago, everything was about to just end. Like seriously, at no point in like the history of the world when we're in like Man of Steel or Batman v Superman where people are like, hey, remember when that, colorful Wonder Woman chick was going around doing stuff before Superman showed up and how the world was about to end in '84? That was crazy, right? No, we're gonna forget how, all that. Okay. Like things are just kind of wrap up and that's it. And they just never really touch on the ramifications all this could have had. Especially, I would think it'd be awkward because they reintroduced the guy that Steve possessed, because, Wonder Woman had to give up Steve to get her powers back because the repercussions of wishing Steve back was that she was losing her powers and all that stuff. So the body shows back up. It'll be a sweet moment, I guess. But I still couldn't get out of my head. Yeah, you essentially kind of... you kind of violated this man. We're not going to touch on that though, I guess. Also, this movie oddly uses a soundtrack from Inception, just randomly. Like Diana, she's like flying through the clouds and it's supposed to be like an epic moment, but literally it's straight up, I think the song's called Time, and it's in Inception. It's like that, when things are emotional and things are building up, especially towards the end. It's that song, but they just straight up use it. And I'm like, could you not get an original piece? You got that whole thing for when things are epic, but you don't have a soft piece, yet still from Christopher Nolan? Okay, fine, whatever. But yeah, guys, that was my thoughts on Wonder Woman. I don't hate the movie. I just think it's disappointing. It could have been better. I think, the setting really mattered because with the first one, World War I, there was a lot of things you could pull from about good versus evil. Is evil man's choice, or is the influence of something outside of us? Can we change? But here, we have 84 and it's just 84. You really don't get nothing out of it being in 84. That's disappointing. Yeah, guys, that's it. Let me know what you thought about Wonder Woman 84. Did you love it? Did you kind of like it? Did you hate it? Do you think it's better than the original, or do you still think the original is better? Or are you one of those people that think, I don't know, Batman v Superman is still the greatest movie or something? There's people out there that does. But that's all I have to say. Like, subscribe, share if you enjoyed this review at all. I really kind of just scrapped this together last minute because I was bored. And until next time, take care.